everyone, and welcome back to the World of Wrestling podcast. I'm Slim, and Carl is still not with us. Not sure when he's coming back. Whale Dong, he will be back. Right, Carl will be back, okay? Not sure when. So, wanted to point that out. Whale Dong keeps asking if he'll be back. He will be. However, this week we're going to start with Raw. And here we go. So Raw starts with a hype package for the show, talking about the 4 championship matches that we're going to have here tonight. Then McIntyre comes out to kick off the show, and he talks about what happened last week. He's about to talk about the future when Dolph Ziggler interrupts him. Ziggler says that he and Rude are the other side of the Styles trade. Ziggler says Drew owes him for what happened in the past and how Ziggler helped him. Ziggler asked Drew for a title match at Extreme Rules, which is a horror show. Drew says that Ziggler has become entitled. He has become an entitled jackass, and asks if Ziggler really wants the match at Extreme Rules, the horror show. Drew cuts Ziggler off as Ziggler's about to answer him and confirms the match. Nia Jax comes out next and sits on a chair in the middle of the ring. She says that she was cheated out of the title before being interrupted by R-Truth. Truth says that he's meant to have a match against an evil leader of a ninja clan, Akira Tozawa. However, he also says that Nia could be Tozawa in a disguise. When Tozawa shows up, Truth says 2 Tozawas, and the ninjas show up and he runs away. Charlotte then comes out and says because Nia dropped the ball, she's upset. They then talk about families. Nia says that Charlotte has never beaten her. Nia and Charlotte then brawl. We then get a video package for the Anything You Can Do, We Can Do Better rivalry between the Profits and Raiders. Profits then cut a promo, and as they talk about the Raiders show up, and they say that when the bell rings, it's on. Both teams say they will win. As the teams walk off, Vega shows up and looks happy about something. Next, we have the Street Profits defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against the Viking Raiders. It was a good match. Profits win by pinfall after they hit the cash out on Ivar. Tez gets the pin. Post-match, they hug and whatnot, and after the Raiders leave, Garza and Andrade attack the Profits until the Raiders come back to run them off. Rollins is backstage, and Murphy and Theory show up. They say they have an idea. Rollins silences them and says he has a message for Ray. We then take a look at what happened last week between Ray, Rollins and Dominic. Rollins then says that he didn't choose to be the Messiah, just as Ray didn't choose to be a sacrifice, but he accepted it for the greater good. The greater good. Where Ray has defied his destiny, Rollins then says that whatever happens to Ray or Dominic is on Ray. We then get a recap of what happened between Nia and Charlotte earlier, and we see Charlotte coming out of the trainer's room. Then we get a backstage interview with Charlotte, who says her arm will be fine to hold up the Raw Women's title. Charlie then walks over to Garza, Vega and Andrade and interviews them. Angel says that they found what they want and went after it. Vega says they are a united front and found a common goal. Andrade finishes Vega's sentence when he says the Raw Tag Team Championships. Next is Charlotte versus Asuka for the Raw Women's title. Nia watches from backstage. It was a good match. Asuka won by submission with the Asuka lock. Then we got an interview with Nia, who says that it would be a shame for somebody to kick the Queen while she's down. Then we have a look at what happened between Orton and Christian last week, and Edge provides an update on his condition. He says that Randy won, but wasn't the better wrestler, and instead he panicked, hit him with a low blow. Edge says that he's disappointed that he didn't see the low blow coming and he didn't do it first. Edge says he needs to wake up a part of him that has been dormant for far too long. He then says that what he did to Christian last week woke up that part of Edge. Edge is going to embarrass Randy. Edge says he'll tear Randy's life apart. And now Randy has woke up the Rated R superstar. We then get an interview with Orton, who says he will do what he needs to survive and Edge and Christian will live long lives provided they do it away from him. Charlotte then gets interviewed and says the only reason Asuka won was because she targeted an injury. Nia then attacks Charlotte and targets the arm, and Charlotte's now gone for surgery or something. Next up is the 24/7 championship match between Akira Tozawa and R-Truth. Before the match, Lashley and MVP attack all the ninjas. Tozawa hides under the ring. Lashley locks in the full Nelson on Truth, and they leave. Tozawa then pins Truth to win the title. We then get an interview with Natalya, who interrupted the update we were going to get on Charlotte. Natalya says that she is what the roster needs as their champ, and goes to the ring for a match. Next is Natalya with Lana vs Liv Morgan. Natalya won by submission with the sharpshooter after Lana distracted Liv. It was a shit match. Backstage interview with Big Show next, who talks about fighting ninjas. Big Show then says he's here this week to confront Randy Orton. We then have a recap of what happened between Ziggler and McIntyre earlier before commentary confirms that the match will take place at Extreme Rules, the horror show. Ric Flair is out next to anoint Orton as the greatest wrestler ever before he brings Orton out. He says Charlotte was injured earlier, and when she comes back, Nia will be in a lot of trouble. Rick then says Orton is the greatest, and within 24 hours last week, he punted both Edge and Christian into retirement. Orton comes out, and Rick says that Orton is the best performer in the history of WWE. Orton says that he is the greatest wrestler and the legend killer. Big Show interrupts, comes down, and says enough. Show says Orton will pay for what he did to Edge and Christian. Show also says that he will break every bone in Orton's body. Orton says that Show is a future Hall of Famer and some would say a legend. Show then squares up and Orton gets out of the ring and says what happens next is on Show before he and Flair leave. Then we look at what happened last week between Bayley and Sasha and the Iconics. Then we get Bayley and Sasha defending the women's tag titles against the Iconics. It was a good match. Bayley and Sasha won after Peyton tapped out to the bank statement. Post-match, Sasha says she wants the experience of having two titles, and as it seems like she's going to challenge Bayley, she instead challenges Asuka. Asuka comes out, Asuka comes out, says Sasha isn't the boss of her, and accepts the challenge. Bayley and Banks attack Asuka and both stand tall with two titles. Only problem with that is that Sasha's a SmackDown superstar and can't challenge for a Raw title. The only reason why she's on Raw is because of the women's tag titles. So she can't actually do that. But I guess they just needed a challenger for Asuka that seems believable. Backstage interview with Lashley and MVP. Lashley says that he attacked Truth earlier because if it wasn't for Truth, he would have won the WWE title last week. MVP says that he will help Cruz. Liv is backstage. Ruby Riott walks up to her and Liv leaves after saying that she doesn't need Ruby to make her feel worse since nothing has gone her way. VIP Lounge next with Apollo Crews. MVP talks about what has happened to Crews over the past few months. Crews cuts him off and declines his offer. MVP says that Crews needs MVP. MVP also says that whether Crews likes it or not, the US title is coming home to where it belongs, with him. Shelton Benjamin then comes out and squares up with Crews before the match. MVP distracts Crews, allowing Shelton to attack him. And it's main event time, and it's Apollo Crews versus Shelton Benjamin. Decent match. Crews won by pinfall after hitting the toss powerbomb. Post-match, Lashley comes out and locks in the full Nelson. I reckon that match could have been better had they have given it more time, and yeah, because Crews is really good. Shelton Benjamin is really good, but they need to use Shelton better. Anyway, backstage, Ray tells Dominic to trust him, and to close the show, Ray and Dominic are out to confront Seth Rollins. Ray says last week Dominic scared Ray, but he's proud of him for being able to get out of a 3-on-1 situation. Ray says that it's time for Ray to fight for Dominic, and he needs to fight Rollins alone. Dominic says he ain't going nowhere. Rollins comes out. Rollins says he doesn't know what to do. Does he slaughter a father in front of his son, or does he make Ray watch? He doesn't know. As Theory and Murphy come down, Black and Carrillo come out and take out Murphy and Theory. Then they go 4-on-1 on Rollins, and as they go to extract revenge, Murphy and Theory save Rollins. And as Rollins goes to do the same thing to Dominic, which is the eye into the steel steps, Black and Carrillo run them off with chairs, and that's how the show ends. Raw this week was decent. Wasn't particularly great. It wasn't too bad when it started, and then it just sort of declined and got more and more boring and shittier and shittier. We'll move on to AEW Dark, and this week's Dark has 9 matches. First match of Dark is Robert Anthony vs Brian Cage, and it was a squash match for Brian Cage. He won by pinfall after hitting the drill claw. Up next is Musa and David Ali vs SCU, which is Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels. And it's revealed that SCU have decided that Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels will focus on the tag division, while Scorpio Sky focuses on being a singles competitor. So that means that every time there's a tag team match at SA vs SCU, it's Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, unless I specify Scorpio Sky. But anyway, back to the match. It was a good match. SCU won by pinfall after hitting the best Meltzer ever on Ali. Then we get Pineapple Pete vs Shawn Spears with Tully Blanchard. Pretty good match. Spears won by pinfall after he hit a big left hand that had some sort of metal in the glove, and that knocked Pete out for the 3 count. Tully slid it in, he put it into the glove and then hit him, sort of tucked whatever the hell it was into his tights or something, and won by pinfall. We then have Griff Garrison vs Lance Archer with Jake Roberts. Murderhawk murdered someone during his entrance again. It was a squash match for Lance, who won by pinfall after hitting the EVD head slams. Post-match, the dude that Archer brought out with him started to get up and got choke slammed. After that, we get Dark Order, which is John Silver and Alex Reynolds, and I have worked out what numbers they are. John Silver is number 4, Alex Reynolds is number 3. Versus Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. Janela and Kiss won by pinfall after Kiss hit the split leg splash on Reynolds off the back of Silver, who was on the shoulders of Janela, who hit a Death Valley driver on Silver. So, I'll break that down again. So, Joey Janela had Silver on his shoulders, and Kiss came off of his off the back of Silver, hit the split leg splash. Janela then hit a Death Valley driver on Silver, while Kiss picked up the victory on Reynolds. Then we have Kaylen King versus Mel as a decent match. Mel won by pinfall with a chokeslam spinebuster for a 3. And I've just realised I've used 2. Oh no, I used we then have and then we have. Okay, that's fine. But we then get Lee Johnson vs Scorpio Sky. It was a good match. Sky won by pinfall with TKO. Post-match, Sky and Johnson hug, shake hands, and Sky also gives Johnson the ring. Up next is Luther, Serpentico, and Max Caster versus Jurassic Express. It was a good match. Luther is very fun to watch. He also likes to swear a lot and lots of other things. I mean, he says some stuff that he probably shouldn't. But I don't know, he's very fun to watch. Jurassic Express win by submission after Caster tapped out to Jungle Boy, who had locked in the STF. And Luther and Serpentico actually left the match toward the end because they just sort of went, yeah, nah, he's got this, and didn't. And yeah. But it's main event time, and it's Orange Cassidy versus Peter Avalon with Leva Bates. Good match. Orange won by pinfall after hitting the Superman punch for the 3 count. We'll then move on to AEW Dynamite, and also if you can hear some dogs, they're over the road. I can hear them very loud right now, and I don't know what they're barking at. But anyway, AEW Dynamite this week starts with Luchasaurus with Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt versus Wardlow with MJF in a lumberjack match. Really good, fun match. Wardlow won by pinfall after hitting a low blow, then the F10 for the 3 count. Post-match, MJF and Wardlow attack and brawl with Jurassic Express, and all the lumberjacks get in the ring to pull them all apart. We then get Taz talking about the drill claw and some of the techniques Cage uses to dominate his opponents. Commentary then runs down tonight's card, and Britt Baker sends another note to Tony. She's doing this all throughout the show. Hikaru Shida is out next to face Red Velvet. Before the match, Shida gets restrained by the ref from attacking Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. It was a squash match for Shida. Shida won by pinfall with the Falcon Arrow before attacking Ford and Sabian. The match went for about 5 seconds, I do believe. It was like, I think she just hit the Falcon Arrow and that was it. But we then get a press conference for Cody versus Jake Hager. Then we get a video package for Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss. Then we have Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela versus Colt Cabana and Mr. Brody Lee with Alex Reynolds and John Silver. It was a good match. Colt and Mr. Brody Lee won after Brody hit the discus clothesline on Joey and presented him to Colt, who was the legal man. Colt then covered him for the 3. Post-match, Archer destroys Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss. Janela even threw a chair into Archer's face, who just sort of looked at him like, really? You might want to do that harder. And killed him. We then see what happened on Dark in the Shawn Spears vs Pineapple Pete match. We then get SCU vs FTR. Pretty good match. FTR won by pinfall after they hit the Goodnight Express, which is the Shadow Machine, on Christopher Daniels for the 3 count. Post-match, FTR get on the mic and they say that they are the absolute baddest. They say that when it comes to FTR, you've bit off more than you can chew because they are the best. Butcher and Blade interrupt and they are in FTR's truck, and they challenge FTR and the Young Bucks to an 8-man tag at Fyter Fest with the Lucha Bros, who are in the ring. FTR and Lucha Bros brawl until the Bucks come out and run them off. The Lucha Bros then run and jump into FTR's truck, and Lucha Bros and Butcher and Blade drive off in their truck. Which, I guess that means that they won't have their... FTR won't have their truck for Fyter Fest? I don't know. We then get a video package for Best Friends vs Omega and Hangman Page next week. We then have a video package for Moxley vs Cage in 2 weeks. We then get Brian Cage with Taz on commentary vs John Cruz. Squash match for Cage, who won by pinfall with the Drill Claw. Post-match, Taz cuts a promo saying that Cage will destroy Mox at Fyter Fest. Then we see Mr. Brodie Lee talking to Colt Cabana, and he tells Colt that at Fyter Fest, he and Colt will face SCU. Mr. Brodie Lee tells SCU that they are in his sights. Commentary then runs down both nights of Fyter Fest. Britt sends a note to Tony directed at Big Swole that says Britt will have a revenge. Swole shows up and has a go at Britt, and then gets on top of the Rolls Royce and drops a rubbish bin full of rubbish on Britt. Main event time, and it's Santana and Ortiz versus Broken Matt Hardy. Oh no, Santana with Ortiz versus Broken Matt Hardy with Nero 1. It was a good match. Matt Hardy won by pinfall with a double leg cradle. Post-match, Proud and Powerful attack Matt with the Mad Ball before hitting the Street Sweeper. Private Party come out late to run Proud and Powerful off. To close the show, we get Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho coming out to go face to face. Jericho grabs a mic and says that the chicken crossed the road to get to the other side multiple times. Like, he's just gone, why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. He did that multiple times. He said that he's doing that because it's dumb and annoying, like Orange Cassidy. He says that Orange got over by himself, and if he tries any of that, like the soft kicks into the shin, if he tries any of that bullshit, he'll beat him in 30 seconds. Orange took the mic from Jericho, and as it looked like he went to say something, he just put it on the ground and did the soft kicks to Jericho. Jericho then took Orange's glasses and broke them, and then Orange started the brawl between the two, which goes outside and into the crowd, up the stairs, and Jericho uses the jib to take advantage. The show ended with a bleeding Orange Cassidy hitting a Superman punch that sends Jericho through a table. Orange stands tall on a road case. We do have AEW Fyter Fest predictions up on the channel. I will put a link thing, the eye at the top of the screen. I'll put a link to the thingo in there, to the predictions in there. NXT is what we're going to move on to now, like every week. This week's NXT starts with a recording of what happened earlier, where Grimes is running from Priest, who looks like he was ran over or something. Grimes is out next, and he is talking about everything that has happened between himself and Priest. Priest comes out, and Grimes attacks him, and then they have a match. It was a good match. Grimes won by pinfall with the cave-in. We then see a video of Rhea from earlier, who says she's proud of Io, and she says, hang on. And after she says that, Robert Stone shows up to try to recruit her again. He gets attacked again, and this time put in a skip bin. Aaliyah shows up and has a go at Rhea and slaps her. Rhea's very happy about that. Next we have Timothy Thatcher's training camp, where he teaches the half crab and a Kimura. Then we see what happened between Escobar and Maverick last week. We then get Santos Escobar with Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza versus Jake Atlas. It was a good match. Escobar won by pinfall with the Phantom Driver. Then we get some more undisputed therapy, and in that, Roderick Strong actually worked out that the therapist is Kyle O'Reilly, and he conquered his fear of being put into a trunk. We then get an in-depth look at our main event tonight. We then get Kacy Catanzaro and Caden Carter versus Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. Good match. Kai and Gonzalez won by submission when Kacy tapped out to Kai, who had a reverse Rings of Saturn thing locked in. Post-match, Kai calls out Io. Next up is Karrion Kross with Scarlett versus Bronson Reed. Good match. Kross won by submission with the Kross jacket. We then got an interview with Adam Cole next, and he says that he doesn't care who wins tonight. Then we have a video package for Mercedes Martinez. We then have Rhea Ripley versus Aaliyah with Robert Stone. It was a decent match. Rhea got the pinfall after hitting the Riptide. Stone got involved in the match too, and Ripley almost got her hands on him, but he only just got away. Then we get Dexter Lumis versus Roderick Strong with Bobby Fish. During Strong's entrance, he tries to leave, but Fish brings him back. Strong leaves the match without either man touching, so Lumis won by a countout. Post-match, Lumis locks in the Katagantami on Fish, who gets out of it and runs away. Backstage, Stone asks for a rematch against Rhea. Regal says, okay, it's a 2-on-1 handicap match. Stone says he's not a wrestler, and Regal says, but that's what you wanted. And Stone says, okay, but when they win, Rhea has to join his brand. Regal says, I can't control that. Rhea shows up and says, okay, match is on. So that's what we get next week, I guess. We then have a video package to show the number 1 contenders match for the NXT Women's title that will take place next week. And now it's main event time, and it's Keith Lee versus Johnny Gargano versus Finn Balor, North American Championship on the line. Winner faces Adam Cole for the NXT title in 2 weeks. Really good match. Keith Lee won by pinfall after hitting the Big Bang Catastrophe on Finn Balor for the 3 to retain his North American title and to earn the right to challenge Adam Cole for the NXT title in 2 weeks. Post-match, Adam Cole comes down and both he and Lee square up together and hold their titles high. Also, about the next 2 weeks, NXT is running Great American Bash on both weeks. So they're pretty much just trying to get viewers away from Dynamite because they're running Fyter Fest. So expect some title matches and whatnot. Oh, obviously. I'd say that next week we're getting the number 1 contenders for the women's title. So the week after we're definitely getting the NXT and North American title match, and I'd say we'll get the women's title match. So maybe next week Imperium will defend their tag titles. I don't know, but there'll be some pretty big matches, I'd say. Moving on to NXT UK though, and this week's NXT UK has some NXT UK superstars picking their favourite matches of all time. We'll move on to SmackDown, and this week's SmackDown is a tribute to The Undertaker. And during the match, legends talk about Taker. The show starts with a video package showing highlights of Taker's career and him saying that he is retired. The rest of the locker room, some of the locker room is on stage thanking Taker. We then see Undertaker's debut in like a video package sort of way. After that, we get the Boneyard match, and they don't remove the Gallows and Anderson parts from it either, so it was the full thing. I was surprised to see that they didn't get rid of the Gallows and Anderson stuff. it didn't worry me that it was there. I just thought they would have because they fired him, but they didn't. After the Boneyard match, Corbin's in the ring and he says that Taker is the founding member of Vince McMahon's Kiss My Ass Club. He says that Taker is an old man and says that he wants to leave Mark Calloway with a final thought, and that thought is, you suck. Jeff Hardy comes out then to attack Corbin. We then have a backstage interview with Jeff, who says that he's going to teach some respect to Corbin. Bayley and Sasha are out next to join commentary for Alexa Bliss versus Nikki Cross versus Dana Brooke versus Lacey Evans to determine who will challenge Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship at Extreme Rules, the Horror Show. Good match. Cross won by pinfall with the schoolgirl on Lacey for the 3. We then get New Day and Lucha House Party versus Miz and Morrison and Cesaro and Nakamura. During the match, New Day and Cesaro and Nakamura brawl to the back. It was a good match. New Day and Lucha House Party won by pinfall after Metalik hit the rope walk elbow drop on the Miz for the 3. New Day come back for the celebration. We then have a backstage interview with Corbin, who says he's going to teach Jeff a lesson in reality. He also says Jeff should hang up the boots, and after the night, Jeff will rest in peace. We then see Braun walking backstage, and the screen does the old Bray weird flashy stuff. You know, like where it would sort of, it did the whole weirdy thing, show up his face for a second, and get all swirly and all that shit. But Braun's out next, and he talks about Bray, and says that Bray Wyatt is evil and is the devil himself. Braun then says he started doing the devil's work and loved every second of it, and some part of him still does. Braun then asks Bray how about they go back to the swamp. Braun says that he'll either become the most evil son of a bitch the world has ever seen, or he will beat the devil. Main event time, and it's Jeff Hardy versus King Corbin. Before the match, and during Corbin's entrance, we see what happened earlier when Corbin said Mark Calloway sucks and Jeff attacks him. During the match, Corbin mocks Undertaker. Some of the locker room comes out to support Jeff, so it turned into a lumberjack match, I guess. I don't know. It was a good match. Jeff won by pinfall after hitting the Swanton Bomb. Post-match, Corbin attacks Jeff. New Day get in the ring and Corbin takes out Kofi. Big E hits the big ending. Then Braun hits the power slam. Matt Riddle gets in the ring and hits the floating bro, and everyone celebrates. Jeff does the Undertaker pose to a picture of Undertaker that is on the Tron to end the show. We'll move on to 205 Live, and Drew Gulak is on commentary for this week's episode of 205 Live, and there's also only one match, which is Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Tony Nese. During the match, Nese got a chair, didn't use it. That pretty much cost him though, and it was a pretty good match between Swerve and Nese. Swerve won by pinfall after hitting a top rope double foot stomp for the 3 count. Now we'll move on to the New Japan Cup, and this week's first round continues and finishes, and the second round starts. But first we'll talk about the last 8 matches in the first round. So Taichi defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi. Kota Ibushi defeated Zack Sabre Jr. Sanada defeated Ryusuke Taguchi. Sho defeated Shingo Takagi. Yoshihashi defeated Hiroyoshi Tenzan. Bushi defeated Yo. Hiroki Goto defeated Yujiro Takahashi. And Evil defeated Satoshi Kojima. Second round began this week and will finish next week. But here's what happened in the second round this week. Tomohiro Ishii defeated Togi Makabe. Taiji Ishimori defeated Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Hiromu Takahashi defeated Toru Yano, and Kazuchika Okada defeated Yuji Nagata. So that was this week in wrestling. One thing I didn't mention that I should mention is that they are now calling Extreme Rules this year the Horror Show, or just Horror Show, something like that. So that's why every time I brought up Extreme Rules, I always said Extreme Rules, the Horror Show, because that's what they're calling it. That's the tagline and all that. Like, yeah, I don't know. And I guess it's because they're going to hopefully have some proper extreme matches. I know that Braun versus Bray is taking place in a swamp, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's meant to be scary. I don't know. But other than that, that's been it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and good night.